Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to hold on to someone's attention, the further they seem to drift away? It's a painful truth, one that almost everyone experiences at some point in life. Maybe you've sent another message after being ignored. Maybe you've kept showing up for someone who never made time for you. Maybe you've spent sleepless nights wondering what you did wrong, replaying conversations in your mind, searching for an answer that never comes. But today, I want you to see something that can completely change the way you live. The greatest loss isn't that someone ignored you. The greatest loss is what happens when you begin ignoring yourself. The moment you start chasing someone who has already decided not to value your presence, you surrender something far more valuable than your time. Or you surrender your power. Every unanswered text, every one-sided effort, every attempt to convince someone of your worth sends a silent message, not to them, but to yourself. It says, their approval matters more than my dignity. Think about that. Why should another person's attention determine your value? Why should your happiness depend on someone who has already shown you where you stand? Strong people understand a simple principle. If someone consistently overlooks your presence, your mission is not to become more convincing. Your mission is to become more aware. People naturally value what is rare, not what is constantly available. This isn't cruelty, it's human psychology. When you make yourself endlessly accessible, when you drop everything the moment someone calls, when your entire emotional world revolves around gaining one person's attention, you unknowingly remove the mystery, the strength, and the confidence that command respect. Confidence never begs. Confidence never pleads. Confidence never negotiates for basic respect. Instead, it quietly walks away from places where it is not appreciated. Too many people confuse persistence with self-respect. Persistence is powerful when you're pursuing your dreams, your purpose, your health, or your goals. But persistence becomes self-destruction when you're chasing someone who repeatedly chooses not to meet you halfway. You cannot persuade someone to value what they have already decided to overlook. Read that truth again in your own mind. You cannot force appreciation. You cannot negotiate genuine interests. You cannot earn respect by sacrificing your own. The more desperately you seek validation, the more you communicate uncertainty about your own worth, and uncertainty attracts disappointment. But certainty changes everything. When you know who you are, you stop trying to convince others to see it. You simply become it. Imagine what your life would look like if every ounce of energy you've spent chasing people was redirected toward building yourself, learning new skills, improving your health, expanding your knowledge, strengthening your discipline, creating opportunities, becoming someone whose confidence comes from within instead of from applause. That is where real freedom begins. One day you'll realize something remarkable. The people who truly value you never required endless chasing in the first place. They responded with effort because respect naturally flows both ways. Relationships built on mutual appreciation don't require you to abandon your dignity just to keep them alive. So from this moment forward, stop measuring your worth by who ignores you. Measure it by how faithfully you protect your own peace, because the day you stop chasing those who overlook you is the day you begin walking toward the life you truly deserve. Now that you've stopped chasing those who refuse to recognize your value, a new question emerges. Where should all of that energy go? The answer is simple, yet it changes everything. Invest it in becoming the kind of person who no longer depends on anyone's approval to feel complete. Most people spend years trying to be accepted instead of becoming exceptional. They carefully adjust their personalities to fit into different groups. They hide their opinions to avoid rejection. They say yes when they desperately want to say no. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They apologize for things they didn't do. Slowly, without realizing it, they trade authenticity for acceptance. And the price is always the same. They lose themselves. Understand this carefully. The world does not respect people who constantly seek permission to exist. It respects people who stand firmly on their values, even when standing alone feels uncomfortable. Validation is one of the most addictive substances in human life. Unlike wealth or possessions, it has no limit. Once you receive it, you immediately crave more. One compliment leads to another. One message isn't enough. One person's approval turns into the need for everyone's approval. It becomes a cycle that never truly satisfies because the source of your confidence lives outside of you. That is a dangerous place to build your identity. If someone praises you today, you feel powerful. If they criticize you tomorrow, your confidence disappears. Think about what that means. It means you have handed strangers the keys to your emotional life. They decide when you feel worthy. They decide when you smile. They decide when you doubt yourself. No one should ever possess that kind of control over your inner world. Real confidence is built differently. It isn't built through compliments. It is built through promises you make to yourself and consistently keep. Every morning you wake up and choose discipline over excuses, confidence grows. Every workout you finish when you wanted to quit strengthens more than your body. Every book you complete expands more than your knowledge. Every difficult conversation you face instead of avoiding builds another layer of emotional strength. These victories may seem invisible to the world, but they become the foundation of an unshakable identity. People often ask why certain individuals naturally attract respect wherever they go. It isn't because they desperately seek attention. It's because their attention is focused elsewhere. They are absorbed in their mission. They are committed to becoming better than they were yesterday. Their purpose is so clear that they don't have time to chase people who offer inconsistent interest. Purpose is magnetic. When you have a meaningful direction, rejection loses its power. You stop interpreting every unanswered message as a personal failure because your life is no longer centered around one person's response. Your calendar becomes filled with growth instead of waiting. Your thoughts become occupied with creation instead of overthinking. Your energy shifts from seeking approval to building a future. Ask yourself a difficult question. If every person who ignored you suddenly disappeared from your life forever, would you still know who you are? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, don't panic. It simply means you've been investing more in relationships than in yourself. And that can change starting today. Become obsessed with developing your skills, learn something that increases your value, build financial independence, strengthen your body until it reflects the discipline of your mind. Protect your peace by surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to grow instead of making you question your worth. The more complete you become within yourself, the less desperate you become for external recognition. Ironically, this is when people begin to notice you. Not because you chased them, not because you demanded their attention, but because genuine confidence has a quiet presence that cannot be ignored. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek applause. It simply exists. And that existence speaks louder than words ever could. So stop searching for proof that you are enough in the eyes of others and start becoming so grounded in your own purpose that no one's approval is required to remind you of your worth. As you become more secure in your own worth, another lesson begins to reveal itself. One that most people misunderstand. They believe that if someone pulls away, the solution is to move closer. They believe that if they speak more, explain more, apologize more, approve themselves more, they will repair the connection. But life teaches a different lesson. Sometimes the most powerful action is not moving forward. Sometimes it is stepping back. There is incredible strength in strategic distance. Distance is not about playing childish games or pretending you don't care. It is not about manipulating people into missing you. It is about respecting yourself enough to stop forcing what should happen naturally. If someone values your presence, they will make room for you. If they don't, no amount of effort on your part will create genuine appreciation. Think about the sun for a moment. It doesn't chase the earth to be noticed. It remains steady, and everything revolves according to its own nature. There is a lesson hidden in that image. Powerful people are centered. They are grounded. They are not constantly changing their direction to earn someone's attention. Many people fear silence because silence feels uncertain. They believe every pause must be filled, every misunderstanding must be explained immediately, or every disagreement must be resolved at once. But silence has a language that words can never replace. When you stop speaking, people begin observing. When you stop chasing, people begin wondering. When you stop demanding attention, people begin revealing their true intentions. Silence exposes what noise hides. How many times have you continued a conversation that the other person had already abandoned? How many times have you sent another message after receiving no reply? How many times have you explained yourself to someone who had already decided not to understand you? Every unnecessary explanation weakens your position, not because explaining is wrong, but because constant explaining often comes from fear instead of confidence. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. Confidence doesn't rush to defend itself. It understands that not every opinion deserves a response. Not every criticism requires a battle. Not every person deserves unlimited access to your energy. The strongest individuals know how to leave space. Space allows people to show you who they really are. If they care, they will cross the distance. If they don't, they were already moving away long before you noticed. Either way, the truth becomes clear. Too often, people mistake availability for kindness. They believe being constantly reachable makes them valuable. But unlimited availability often creates invisible expectations. People begin assuming you'll always be there, no matter how poorly they treat you. Respect quietly disappears because your presence becomes predictable rather than appreciated. This is why boundaries matter. A boundary is not a wall built to keep people out. It is a line that protects your peace. It teaches others how to treat you without needing endless conversations. Every time you honor your boundaries, you send a message that your time, your emotions, and your dignity have value. And something remarkable happens when you stop forcing relationships. Those built on convenience begin to fade. Those built on manipulation begin to collapse. But those built on genuine respect become stronger because they were never dependent on constant pursuit in the first place. Never be afraid of creating distance from people who only notice your absence after taking your presence for granted. Their reaction tells you everything you need to know. Remember, mystery has its own quiet power. You don't need to announce every move. You don't need to share every thought. You don't need to explain every decision. There is confidence in allowing your actions to speak while your emotions remain under your control. The person who controls their emotions controls their direction. The person who controls their direction controls their future. And the person who protects their peace will always stand stronger than the one who sacrifices it just to avoid being alone. So when someone chooses distance, don't chase them. Step back with dignity, protect your peace, and let silence reveal what words never could. Once you learn the power of stepping back, you begin to see people more clearly than ever before. Distance has a remarkable way of removing illusion. When emotions settle, patterns become visible. The excuses that once sounded convincing begin to lose their strength. You stop focusing on isolated moments and start noticing repeated behavior, and that is where wisdom begins. Never judge people by what they promise when they need you. Judge them by what they consistently do when they don't. Many people enter our lives with beautiful words but empty actions. They know exactly what to say to keep you emotionally attached. They offer just enough attention to keep your hope alive, then disappear the moment they no longer need your energy. This cycle repeats so slowly that most people don't even realize they are trapped inside it. Ask yourself an honest question. Do they truly value you, or do they simply value what you provide? There is a difference. Some people love your loyalty, but not you. They love your availability, but not your presence. They love your support, but never offer theirs in return. The relationship becomes a one-way investment where you continue depositing time, attention, forgiveness, and emotional energy into an account that never gives anything back. Eventually, even the strongest person becomes emotionally exhausted. This is why emotional awareness is one of the greatest forms of intelligence. It allows you to recognize the difference between someone having a difficult season and someone making a habit of treating you as an option. Everyone gets busy. Everyone faces challenges. Everyone struggles at times. But respect always finds a way. A person who values you may occasionally be unavailable, but they won't consistently leave you questioning where you stand. They won't make you feel like asking for basic communication is asking for too much. They won't repeatedly disappear and expect instant access whenever it's convenient for them. Pay attention to consistency. Consistency reveals character more accurately than charm ever will. Charm can be rehearsed. Promises can be rehearsed. Apologies can be rehearsed. But consistent behavior tells the truth. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing potential with reality. They fall in love with who someone could become instead of accepting who they repeatedly show themselves to be. They hold on to future possibilities while ignoring present facts. Hope is powerful, but hope without evidence becomes self-deception. You cannot build a healthy relationship on imagined change. If someone continuously ignores your boundaries, dismisses your feelings, contacts you only when they need something, or makes you feel guilty for expecting mutual respect, believe the pattern instead of the excuses. Patterns rarely lie. Another trap you must avoid is believing that sacrificing yourself proves your love. It doesn't. Constant self-sacrifice without mutual appreciation only teaches people that your kindness has no limits. And sadly, what has no limits is often taken for granted. Kindness should never require abandoning your dignity. Compassion should never require tolerating disrespect. Loyalty should never require accepting emotional neglect. Healthy relationships are built on balance. Both people invest, both people communicate, both people protect each other's peace. There is effort from both sides because genuine respect is never one-sided. You also need to understand that not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Some departures are protection disguised as disappointment. Sometimes life removes people who are consuming your energy so you can finally invest it where it belongs, into your purpose, your growth, and the people who genuinely celebrate your presence. The greatest mistake is not losing people who never valued you. The greatest mistake is losing yourself while trying to keep them. From this day forward, stop chasing explanations and start observing actions. Stop believing repeated excuses over repeated behavior. Protect your energy with the same commitment that you protect your dreams, because the people who deserve a place in your life will never require you to earn the respect they should have given you from the beginning. Now comes the moment that separates ordinary people from extraordinary ones. It is the moment when life tells you no. The message goes unanswered. The opportunity disappears. The relationship ends. The invitation never comes. Someone chooses another path, and suddenly you are standing face to face with rejection. Most people see rejection as proof that they are not enough. But the strongest people see rejection as information. That single shift in perspective changes everything. Rejection is painful because it attacks the story you have been telling yourself. You expected loyalty, you expected appreciation, you expected your effort to be returned. When reality doesn't match expectation, disappointment enters. But disappointment is not your enemy. It is a teacher. It exposes where you have been placing your identity. If your identity depends on someone else's acceptance, then every rejection will feel like a personal collapse. But if your identity is built on your values, your discipline, and your purpose, rejection simply becomes another event, not a definition of who you are. Think about every great achievement in history, every successful entrepreneur, every respected leader, every athlete, every artist, every inventor has faced rejection. Doors were closed in their faces, their ideas were criticized, their abilities were questioned, their dreams were mocked. What separated them from everyone else wasn't talent alone. It was their refusal to let rejection become their identity. Life has an interesting habit. Sometimes it removes people and opportunities not to punish you, but to redirect you. You only realize this months or years later when you look back and understand that what once felt like your greatest loss became the beginning of your greatest transformation. Imagine if every rejection you've experienced was actually creating space for something better. Imagine if every closed door forced you to discover strengths you never would have developed otherwise. Imagine if the person who ignored you unknowingly pushed you toward becoming stronger, wiser, and more independent. Suddenly, rejection no longer looks like failure. It begins to look like preparation. There is another mistake many people make after being rejected. They become obsessed with revenge. They want to prove the other person wrong. They dream about the day everyone regrets underestimating them. Be careful with that mindset. Revenge keeps your attention chained to the very people you're trying to escape. Even your success becomes dependent on their reaction. You are still living for their approval, only wearing a different mask. True power is different. You don't improve to make someone jealous. You improve because growth is your responsibility. You don't become successful so others feel guilty. You become successful because excellence honors your own potential. That is freedom. Pain, if directed wisely, becomes fuel. Every disappointment can become discipline. Every heartbreak can become wisdom. Every betrayal can sharpen your judgment. Every setback can strengthen your character. The question is never whether life will hurt you. The question is what you will build from that hurt. Some people build bitterness, others build resilience. Bitterness traps you in the past. It keeps old wounds alive. It convinces you that everyone will eventually disappoint you. It closes your heart and limits your future. Resilience does the opposite. It acknowledges the pain without surrendering to it. It accepts what happened without allowing it to define what comes next. It transforms scars into strength instead of excuses. There is incredible confidence in someone who has suffered deeply yet still chooses discipline over despair, wisdom over resentment, and purpose over self-pity. One day, the rejection that once kept you awake at night will become a story you barely remember. Not because it wasn't painful, but because you became so much greater than the version of yourself who experienced it. The people who overlooked you will no longer occupy your thoughts because your future will demand more of your attention than your past ever could. So when rejection comes, and it will, don't ask, why did this happen to me? Ask instead, who is this experience preparing me to become? Because your greatest victories are often born from the very moments that once felt like your greatest defeats. As you arrive at this final lesson, everything we've discussed comes together into one powerful realization. The goal was never to make people regret losing you. The goal was never to become someone who is impossible to ignore. The real goal is much deeper than that. It is to become someone who no longer depends on anyone else's attention to recognize their own worth. That is the highest form of freedom. Many people spend their entire lives trying to be chosen. They wait for someone to appreciate them, to notice their effort, to reward their loyalty, or to recognize their value. They believe life begins the moment someone else finally says, "You are enough." But why wait for permission to become extraordinary? Why place your future in the hands of people who may never understand your potential? The strongest individuals make a different decision. They choose themselves first, not out of arrogance, but out of responsibility. They understand that before they can contribute something meaningful to the world, they must first become someone worth trusting, someone worth respecting, someone worth following. And that journey begins in private, long before anyone applauds it. Instead of chasing people, they chase mastery. They master their emotions, they master their habits, they master their time, they master their thinking, because they understand a timeless truth. Your life moves in the direction of what you consistently improve. If you improve your discipline, your future changes. If you improve your communication, your relationships change. If you improve your mindset, every challenge begins to look different. Growth is never accidental. It is built through daily decisions that most people never see. Wake up a little earlier. Read when others scroll endlessly. Exercise when excuses feel convincing. Learn a new skill instead of complaining about missed opportunities. Keep your word even when no one is watching. These actions may appear small, but over time they create an identity that no rejection can destroy. Have you ever noticed that truly confident people rarely announce how confident they are? They don't need to. Their habits speak for them. Their consistency speaks for them. Their calmness under pressure speaks for them. Real strength is quiet, or it doesn't compete for attention. It doesn't argue with every critic. It doesn't chase every opportunity to be seen. It becomes so valuable that its presence naturally attracts respect. This is one of life's greatest paradoxes. The moment you stop chasing recognition, recognition often begins to find you. The moment you stop forcing relationships, healthier ones begin to appear. The moment you stop seeking validation, your confidence becomes authentic instead of performative. But remember this carefully. If people begin noticing you after your transformation, don't make the mistake of returning to old habits. Don't abandon your standards because attention suddenly arrives. The person you are becoming should never be sacrificed for temporary approval. Your standards are your protection. Your discipline is your foundation. Your purpose is your compass. Guard them carefully. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your time. Not everyone deserves your trust immediately. Let people earn a place in your life through consistency, honesty, and mutual respect. A meaningful relationship is never built on desperation. It is built on two whole people choosing to walk the same path without asking either person to lose themselves. As you continue growing, you will also discover something surprising. You will no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your value. You won't waste hours explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You won't lose sleep over those who walked away. Your peace will become more valuable than winning arguments. Your purpose will become more important than being liked. That is maturity. That is emotional strength. That is personal power. One day, someone will ask what changed. They will notice that you are calmer, more focused, less reactive, more confident. They will wonder why you no longer chase, no longer plead, no longer seek constant reassurance. The answer is simple. You finally realize that your greatest investment was never other people's attention. It was your own growth. So walk away from what refuses to value you. Walk toward the life that demands your best, and become so committed to your purpose that the only person you ever need to impress is the one you see in the mirror every single morning.